The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Good evening and welcome to Discovering. I altered the introduction this week because tonight's show is a little heavier than usual. On Monday nights, I prefer to bring you stories that are enjoyable and positive about the outdoors and the people who are out there hunting, fishing, exploring, and everything else. As much as I always want to be upbeat, the reality is that outdoor life can sometimes be unforgiving. And as rewarding as our outdoor pursuits are, they are not without risk. And for some, that risk has increased exponentially. Colter Lubin is a familiar face to the show over the last couple of years. When I first met Colter, I learned quickly that he is passionate about rabbit and hare hunting, and of course, his beagles. And he and his friends took me out on a couple of great hare hunts with their beagles for the show. When Colter told me that he lost 2 of his dogs to wolves this winter, I was devastated for him. It's a hound hunter's worst nightmare. After much thought and reflection, Colter decided to share his story about what happened that day, and despite so many factors working against hound hunters, why he will continue to do what he loves. So you won't hear much more from me on tonight's show, and I'll let Colter tell his story in his own words.
My name is Colter Lubin. I'm from Southwest Michigan originally, Holland. From the time I can remember, we always had beagles. When I was growing up, we were like weekend warrior hunters because I was really into sports. My dad was a coach. So we just hunted on Saturdays, but we always had beagles in the house. And then when my dad grew up, my grandpa had beagles, and then actually my grandma's dad had beagles. So technically I'm a 4th generation hound hunter. Again, it's all been cottontail rabbits and snowshoe hare. And fast forward, I guess, to moving to the UP. I moved to the UP in 2014. At that point, I didn't have any dogs of my own. And actually, it was at this camp, Hort's Hideaway, which is the Swanson family camp. Kevin Swanson was nice enough to invite us out here to come for a weekend of hare hunting. His friend had beagles, so we came out here, and again, having grown up with beagles and then being out here and being around the hunting and the snowshoe hare, I was like, I gotta buy a dog. So I bought Snake in 2017, and then I bought Buck, and those names will become important soon because they're no longer with us. But I bought Buck in October of 2018. And again, my first dog was Snake, and I bought him at 3.5 years old, so he was already a started dog. He was a really good dog. And what was kind of interesting about Snake is, like, when I bought him, he was just a field trial dog from Southwest Michigan. He had never been in a house. He'd never been in the cab of a truck. He'd never been sleeping in a bed on a couch. And his world changed drastically because all my dogs are house dogs. And then I got Buck shortly after that. So I had Buck and Snake up until 2023, and that's when I got Champ and Stud, which those dogs are still with us, fortunately. And people that know me know I hunt a lot. I'm single, I don't have any kids, so pretty much all I do is work, hunt, and fish. And so I asked a lot out of those dogs over the years. I hunt pretty much 3 to 4 days a week all winter, and I roughly run 60 to 90 times in a year. And so those dogs, were out a lot, but I didn't just hunt them, right? So like they slept with me. They live in my house. They go fishing with me on my boat. So they're more than just hunting dogs. So this winter, if anybody can remember, was brutal. We had a lot of snow, and Snake, which again was my first dog that I owned, was 12 and a half years old this winter. And he was hard of hearing, and I think he started to lose some of his sense of direction because of his lack of hearing. So he didn't run much this winter just because the conditions were just not conducive. And like we typically do in late in the winter, we get really warm during the days, and then we get a freeze, and then we'll get fresh snow because we still get snow obviously in March and April. And so on March 26th, we had gotten really cold after a thaw, and the snow had gotten really hard. We still had like 3 foot of snow on the ground, but it was hard. And me and my buddy ran in a spot in Kiva. I had ran Champ and Stud and Buck in Kiva on March 26th, and the conditions are really, really tough. Sunning was tough. But I'm like, the next time we get fresh snow, I'm going to take Snake in here because he hasn't got to run much. I didn't really know when his last hunt would ever be. And so I just wanted to try to make that happen. And so it just so happened the very next day, Friday, March 27th, I was at work, and I was working in Gladstone area, and I was looking north, and it's usually not snowing in Gladstone, Escanaba, and usually if you look north, you can tell it's snowing. And so I raced out of work, probably didn't work a full day, and I was just gonna grab Snake and just take him, and then I opened the door, and like all 4 dogs like piled up to the door, and I was like, fine, I'll take all 4 of you. And nobody could go with me that day, so I was just running by myself. And I get to the spot, and like some of these details I wouldn't normally remember if it wasn't for, unfortunately, what happened that night. So I grabbed Snake, and I closed the box, and I put the collar on him, and he's just kind of running around by the road there. And Buck is just clawing at the door, just like, let me out, and and I was like, man, I really want to just run with Snake, but I'm like, for old time's sake, these two, again, for 5 years, it was them two. They ran together. And so I was like, fine, you can get out too. And we start working through this hardwood stand, which doesn't have any hair in it. We're dropping down into the swamp where we had just been, mind you, the night before we had just ran in here. But the difference was the day before was super icy, today was fresh snow. I would say we were in that cedar swamp maybe 5-10 minutes. Snake jumped one first, and for people that don't know what jump means, he got on the scent of a hare. He takes off, he's barking, and then almost immediately, because normally Buck would just run over to Snake, Buck gets on one. So they're running 2 separate hare, and I would say they ran separate hare for 2 hours. And I was really, really trying to kill one over Snake. And I don't know why I didn't get one that night, but I'll never know. Buck and Snake had a loss, which having a loss means they lost the scent for a little bit. And it was getting a little bit late in the evening, so I just called them over. And I call Buck and Snake over. And again, Snake he can't hear. So I'm like screaming at Snake, and he can't hear me. Well, Buck hears me. I put Buck on the hare, and Buck takes off. And then I walk over to where Snake is. He's only 40, 50 yards away trying to work out this track. And I walk Snake over. He's following me. I'm yelling at him at like point blank.
Snake, look, right here, right here, right here. Look, it's over here. It's over here. Look, 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 look. Snake! Look, bud. Look.
And so at this point, Buck is going back out on this circle, barking. He's on the hare, and now Snake is probably 100 yards behind, just because in that time that I had went and got Snake. And I'm looking at my GPS. So most hound hunters and even bird hunters, they have a GPS. So your dog's got GPS collars on them, and then you have a GPS that shows where your dogs are. You can see where they're running, see where they've been. And Buck gets out about, it was like 300 yards, is from what I remember. 300 yards, and he stops on the GPS. And having run with Buck he was 7.5 years old, so I'd run with Buck a lot. If he lost a hare, he'd often stop and put his head up because he was what we call a cheater. He was listening for another dog that might have it. So I honestly didn't think anything of him stopping at that point. And again, Snake is behind him. Snake is coming up, and he gets to about 170 yards, and Snake stops. And that's when it hit me that they shouldn't both be stopped. I shot my gun in the air, and I've never had this happen, but having friends that have had it happen, just knowing how this was going to look on a GPS, at that moment I knew that those dogs were likely not alive anymore. I get to Snake first, and before I see the blood, before I see Snake, I see the track, and it's a dog track, but it's a wolf track, and so at that moment, I already knew, but I knew at that point, and I looked to my left, and there was Snake. He was still breathing when I got there, but barely. It was a tough image, so I sat there with him. Wasn't sure. I could tell it was his last breath, and within 30 seconds, he was no longer with us at that point. And I called my dad. He was the very first person I called, and I was upset, distraught. Talked to him, yelled, whatever it was, cried, and then I said, Dad, I gotta go because I gotta get to Buck. Although I'm like, he's dead, but I'm gonna walk in there. So I left Snake where he was, and walked into Buck, and the way this played out is how I described. Buck was stopped first, and then Snake. So the wolves had more time with Buck. So as you can imagine, he wasn't breathing anymore, and he looked like the wolves had been with him for longer. So at this point, I'm like 900 yards from the truck, if I'm remembering correctly, and I obviously didn't want to go out and back. I obviously want to be there at all at that point. So Buck was put into my game bag because he had to be put into my game bag to be able to take him out whole. And then Snake, I carried him in my arms. The feelings that I went through in that carrying him out of the woods, I won't even attempt to put words to it, because it was every emotion that a human can feel. I think I felt in that, whatever it took me 10 or 15 minutes to walk out of the woods with him in my arms. And then, yeah. And it was the next morning after Snake and Buck were killed. And I was talking to my dad, and if anybody knows my dad, he's a man of many words. But he had a statement that morning that resonated with me. Because in that moment, I'm having a lot of questions and frustrations about what had happened, right? My dogs had gotten killed based on my decision to run them. And he said, we're going to keep doing this because it's what we do. And that seems simple, but it means so much, because I can't not do this. So those dogs, I got 3 in the truck behind us, and then those 2 that are dead, they're just a huge part of my life, right? They live in my house. Obviously they got to be fed every day, got to do their vet stuff all the time, and then we hunt together. We spend a lot of time together. So I think what happened to me is the worst case scenario. Your dogs get killed or end up dead doing what is normally really, really fun. The most enjoyable, to me, the most enjoyable possible thing I could do. And then, so people might ask, why keep doing it? Why do you do this if you know the risk? And I go back to my dad risk, because it's what we do. But I want to kind of touch on the mental part of having working dogs, and in my case, having beagles. And again, what happened to me is worst case. But since 2017, since I've been running dogs, is when you make that decision to open the dog box or open your truck door, those things that mean so much to you, that live with you, sleep with you, that you feed, that you do everything for, that there's a chance that when you let them out of the truck, that they don't come back. I thought about it, and I said, I want to talk about this not because I want to, but I think what we don't do enough maybe is talk about what we do and how it's changed and how it's gotten tougher. And so I was like, well, this is an opportunity that I didn't want to have, but that I have to tell the story of those two dogs, which, meant the world to me, and just talk about like, hunting with dogs and hunting with hounds and like what that looks like. Cause most people just don't know. Unfortunately, hound hunting nationwide, and in Michigan is declining. It's a thing that's declining. There's many reasons for that. And when I reflect on my, we'll just say 30 years of running dogs in Michigan, and again, I'm not doing this to complain. I'm not doing this to be negative. I'm just being realistic. Other than GPS collars and the technology to track our dogs, not much has gotten better in the state of Michigan for running dogs. I'll start with what's gotten harder from where I'm from, where my dad still runs, is land fragmentation. So what used to be 40 acres is now a bunch of 5-acre parcels. There's more anti-hunters than there used to be. People are more conscious of their property. Roads are busier. The population has increased in that part of the state. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, we have, at least from what I can tell, and I've lived here since 2014, I've seen tourism increase, which increases just traffic on roads, right? Even not just paved roads, but gravel roads. Side-by-sides, again, nothing against them, but side-by-side traffic has increased exponentially on back roads, on trails, and there's that risk. And then, you have wolves, and they're at carrying capacity, across the Upper Peninsula. So there's probably, wherever an individual runs, it's probably a pack territory, right? I started running here in 2014. So my entire time running here, there's been wolves on the landscape. So for me, it's always been something like to think about, to know about. You look at those individuals, those men and women that have been running dogs up here in the Upper Peninsula for 40, 50, 60 years. It's relatively new to them that risk has increased. Running in the wild in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, or even the entire state, it has more risk than it had, just 20 years ago, just 15 years ago. And so I'm sure there's individuals that quit doing it.
Coulter and his friends buried snake and buck at Hort's Hideaway.
Like I said, I've been coming here since 2015 or 16. So we run here a lot. Snake and buck ran here a lot. And a lot of times we just let them out of the truck, throw their GPS collars on, and like even when we're not hunting, we just let them run around camp here. And this spot right here, the hare always cross. It's like you can sit up at the camp and you can watch the dogs chase hare right through here. And this is where Buck ran his first hare too. So there's a lot of like special moments here with these two dogs, and with my other dogs too, for that matter, and all the friends that are here. There's some weekends, there's 10, 11 beagles in that camp. So it just felt like the right place to do it.
Coulter still has Champ and Stud and a new puppy.
This is Bones, which actually the first ever dog that I can remember I named when I was growing up, and his name was, I was like 4 or 5 years old, so I named him Bonesy, but I felt now so it's Bones. Sounds a little more adult-like, but yeah, this is Bones. He's almost 3 months old. Almost, yeah, it'll be 3 months on Tuesday. So. And I can tell you, without a doubt, there is not anything that makes them more excited, makes their heart race more, just their excitement goes through the roof when they know they're going to hunt, right? When you put them in the dog box and they can like almost picture the turns, like, well, we must be right here. I don't know if they do, but they must, because they just know the difference between going to the gas station and going hunting. And I can tell you that there's nothing that those dogs or the two dogs that are no longer here wanted to do more than do that. And so between me not wanting to do something any more than doing that, and between the fact that my dogs and beagles they want to do that more than anything, I'm going to continue to do this. And it's going to be frustrating. There's going to be risk, and it comes with a heavy responsibility. But like my dad said, it's what we do. So we're going to continue to do it.
That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.